Hello and welcome. I'm Darlene with Digital Photo Mentor, and this is my weekly photo editing live stream. If you are new here, I'd like to welcome you if it's your first time, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat, or if you're watching the replay in the comment area below, how you found this video. So please let us know where you're from, how you found us. If you are wanting to participate, what I'm going to be doing today is editing images using Luminar Neo today. This is a Luminar Neo week, and you can submit your images using this link that's right there so that you can send your images to me. I prefer raw files, and then I'll be demonstrating today how I would approach editing your image and what I would do to it. So it's a very educational experience for everybody, even if you aren't submitting your images. Let's take a look at who's here. Hello, we got some regulars. David, who's doing my Lightroom class. Ruth, droning in Ireland. Well, that's cool. Ellen, Kevin, welcome everybody. I see lots of familiar faces and some new names as well. Awesome. Well, glad you're here. Holly, I have one of your images I might do today because I've got some new stuff to show you. So I'm going to hop over to Luminar Neo and we will get started as soon as I can find the button. Okay, now I'm down over here in the corner. Let me just do that so you can see the Luminar interface. If you haven't already updated, there is a Luminar Neo update 1.1.1, and I'm a little bit behind on getting my update videos out, but there is one coming. Rob can probably update you as to an ETA on that. I've passed it over to him, and now he's doing his thing. So that should be available tomorrow-ish, maybe. Let's hope. So I will have a video on the new update, but I'll be showing you some of those things today. So if you haven't already updated, make sure you do that. And you can see I've got your tiger image here, and I think I know I have one of Anne's images, and I might have one of yours, Deb, as well. So I've got a few different things that I wanted to show you, and specifically in regards to the new stuff. So let's actually start with Holly's tiger. Okay, so I'm using Luminar Neo to demonstrate. If you are using Luminar Neo as a plugin for Lightroom, this all still applies as well. So you would just evoke your image from Lightroom into Neo, or ideally through Photoshop as a complete workflow. Rob, if you could please share the link to that video of the workflow it's actually with Luminar AI, but it works exactly the same with Neo. So taking you from Lightroom over to Photoshop as a smart object and then into Luminar. Okay, so the thing that's new here in the latest update is that you can actually duplicate layers now. So but before I do that, I want to do some basic processing. Let me turn my cursor on. I always have the histogram on. If you don't have it on, you can go to View and then Show Histogram. And that's this funny graph here. Okay? If you're not familiar with the histogram, it gives you a representation of the tones in your image from black on the left and white on the right. It also will tell you if you turn on the clipping warnings, you can do that by clicking here or just pressing the J key on your keyboard. It will tell you if anything is clipping. What that means is that there's going to be no detail there. So this poor little tiger looks like he's growling, but I think he's probably yawning, right? He's going to be blown out, and there's not going to be any detail in his fur. So we want to fix that. Right? So I'm going to go into Develop Raw first, and I'm going to see if there's a camera profile that might be slightly better. So usually it will show the camera profiles underneath here and external profiles. This is the only place you can find this. Okay, so it's under Develop Raw and here under Camera Profile. Okay, I'm going to try the landscape one. Look what happened. It got even more contrasty and the color went really vibrant. So I'm not sure about that one. Portrait, meh. Standard, that's actually not too bad because it was a little bit more neutral. And likewise similar. So I'm not seeing a huge difference between these, and the Adobe standard one is a little bit flatter. So let's go with camera neutral. It has a little bit more color. Okay. Then the next thing I do is make sure you have the curves open, because I often will look at the histogram here as well. You can see it's the same kind of graph. It's just sort of stretched a little bit. And what I want to do is get these highlights in control. So press J on your keyboard again to see the clippings. And I'm going to bring the highlights down. I might actually darken the whole image a little bit as well. Okay, so exposure is going to affect mostly your midtones. Okay, highlights is affecting these white areas. So I can clean up and fix most of that. I might also raise the shadows a bit because it's a very contrasty, sort of bright, sunny day image. And I'm just lowering the contrast a little bit. But I still want to make sure that I have good blacks, because that will increase the color saturation. Okay, if you've watched my videos before, you'll know that if your image is lacking color, give it some black. Okay, so see how the green intensifies as I add more black. So I want to clip a little bit of black, and I don't want to clip whites if I can help it. Okay, so he's clipping a little bit here, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. And we could probably take that under control with another quick fix. So I'm not going to worry about the little bits of fur that are clipping. I want to get most of it. Okay, like so. And then I want to deal with the color, because the color doesn't look so great. I'm also going to do the optics. So this is all in the raw develop panel. Okay, so I'm just going to check off auto fix chromatic aberrations and defringe, because it doesn't hurt you to do it anyways, and it's super easy to just check them off. I'm going to add a little bit of sharpening here. I'm going up to about 20 or so, and masking up to a 50. The only thing is you can't see where it's being masked here, so I'm just kind of guessing. And the color looks a little off to me. He looks a little green, so I'm going to give him a little more magenta. We could also try either the pull down menu and choose a preset like daylight. Okay, now he's really green. Let's go back to as shot. Or we could try this eyedropper. When you get the eyedropper, you get this little targeted tool, and it asks you to pick a neutral color. So I'm trying to pick something in his whiskers, okay? And you can see that even that is still a little bit green. That looks a little bit more neutral. Okay? So you can keep using the eyedropper, or you can just adjust the sliders to make it feel a little bit more neutral. I still feel like he's green. That looks better. Okay, now if I can't fix it because it seems to have an odd color, there's another tool for that. So I'm going to close out Develop Raw, and I'm going to go to the Color tool, and there's this Remove Color Cast slider here, which does a really great job. Like, watch the color in the tiger specifically and see if it neutralizes. I find that this one tends to add contrast and darken a little bit, but look at what it's doing. It is removing that funky color cast that I couldn't get rid of with white balance adjustment. So that's good. Okay, now I want to darken the greens. Okay, so while I'm in here, I'm going to go down to Luminance and pull the green slider down, because now it's not taking attention away from him. So again, if you remember the 4 things, I've talked about this in the past. I'm just going to put it up on the screen here. So the 4 things that grab your attention, okay, and specifically if they are in the background, so you want to avoid that, is brightness, or the areas with the brightest spots, which in this case was his white fur. The areas of most contrast, again, his fur. But there's also a lot of contrast in this area between the shadow and the highlights, and back here a little bit. Areas of intense color, so that's that green, and then sharp areas. So we've handled a lot of this just by toning down this green, okay? And we'll try and deal with this as well. Let's see what happens if I do red. Okay, so red is picking up this ball, but it's also darkening his tongue. So I don't want to do that too much. Let's try orange. The orange is going to darken him and give him black tooth, so I don't want to do that. I'm probably just going to go with green in this case. See, there's blue in his fur. Can you see that affecting his chest? Right, so if I want to brighten his chest a little, I can actually bring the cyan and the blue up a little bit. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to leave that there. And I might just add a quick vignette as well, because that will help darken this area. So I'm going to do my normal trick, which is amount to -100, feather to -100. Now you can play with the roundness and the size, because I want to get it right around him. Okay, I might even go full circle. And then you can place the subject. So I had already clicked on this button. Let me turn this guy off over here. Now, wherever I click, it's going to recenter the vignette. And this is a really cool thing because you can't do this in Lightroom. You have to use a radial filter. But now I can put it off center so I get most of this ball being darkened and him not so much. Okay, so then I can decide, okay, do I want it more oval and the shape? So I use these settings with the amount really dark and the feather down to place the vignette. Okay, then once I've got it placed, I'm going to punch the feather back up over 0, so it's on the plus side, and dial the amount down to something that is realistic and believable. Okay, and what I mean by that is you don't want to do vignettes that look like this. Okay, you want to make sure that your vignette is not visible. Okay, you want it to be such a soft gradation on the edge that you can't tell it's there if I didn't tell you. Okay, so once we go out of this tool, okay, if I turn the vignette off, see what it's doing. I'm just clicking the little eyeball like so, and it's bringing attention to his face. Right. I might crop this one a little bit as well. We could also try relight on this one to darken the background. Let's see if we darken the background and brighten him. So this allows you to set the depth. Okay, so I can set the depth so that he's brightened. Yeah, I'm darkening. Let's see. So I don't really want to brighten him. Oh, there we go. That looks pretty good. See how that's working on him? So that's actually doing a really good job as well. Right? But I'm not going to use this one because I want to show you another trick with the new tools that's actually really cool. So relight did work well. And that brings up a good point, is that there's actually many ways to do the same thing in Luminar. So you just have to figure out the one that works best for you. I'm going to crop it a little bit because he's kind of in the center, but he's kind of looking this way. So I want a little more room in front of the direction he's looking. And I'm going to go freeform on this one. So I'm going to come in here. Now he's even more center, but we're gonna work on that. Let's just come in a little bit right into his shoulder. And I want to come down a bit from the top, but I don't want to cut off that whisker of his. So let's just make sure his whisker is still in there. So now he's kind of off center. I'm coming in a little bit to his shoulder. About like that. Okay, so now he is more prominent in the frame and he takes up more space, or what's called visual mass, and that ball is minimized. So simply by cropping, Rob, if you could please share a link to the video I did last week on YouTube on how to 5 tips for effective cropping to make your images better. That's one of the things that I talked about. Okay, now are you ready for the trick? All right, has anybody that's watching, have you tried the duplicate layer in Luminar Neo yet? Okay, if you are watching live, tell me in the chat if you have tried the duplicate layer. If you haven't, you're not clear on what to do with it. Maybe that's the issue, okay? So I'm trying to read the chat here. Looks like somebody's on holiday or something. So, okay, Holly has not tried it. Anybody else? Is that because you don't know what to do with it, Holly? Oh, hey, Trish. Nice to see you. Of course, you come and I don't have one of your images. I always do your images when you're not here, but love to have you. Okay, anybody else? All right, so Deb hasn't tried it either. Okay, so we're going to do it now, right? So what we're going to do is duplicate, and you can do that 2 ways, by right-clicking, and now there's this little duplicate layer here, or there's a keyboard shortcut, which is D, okay? So D makes a new layer. Larry says he hasn't tried it either. Okay, so perfect. So the video, did you indicate when that video is going to be up, Rob? Is that going to be up tomorrow? He missed that question earlier, I think. Basically, I was going to tell them about the new video and when it's coming, and they can look for it. Is it going to be up on the channel tomorrow? Because I'm going to have more on this. Okay. All right. So now our layer is duplicated, and you can see that it's got exactly the same everything. So it's been cropped the same. It's been had the same adjustments, exactly the same. Okay. Now what we can do though is this is an old Photoshop trick for darkening and lightening things or dodging and burning. Okay. Choose multiple blend mode. Look what happened. Okay. Now, what you can do with this is mask it. Okay, I'm going to dial it down a little bit because what I want to do is apply it to the background, but not to him. Okay. So I'm just going to dial it to the opacity that I want on the background. Maybe even darker because I can paint it more in here than there. And then I'm just going to paint it in. And this is the other new thing as well. Okay. So previously when you had the paintbrush, you didn't have a way easily to switch from paint to erase. And I found that sometimes I was on the wrong one and it's not super clear which one is active because they're both sort of gray, right? So it'd be great if one was like red or blue to tell us, hey, you're using this one, right? Now, look at the cursor. See the middle of the cursor and it has a little minus? That's erase. Now, when you press X on your keyboard, now it says plus paint. Super easy, right? So I'm going to dial the strength down a little bit and get a little smaller brush. I'm going to leave the softness kind of middle because I want to come up to the tiger and blend a little bit. But when I click the first click, you'll see all the effects disappear, okay? Because the first click, I'm now telling it, this is where I'm painting in. So I'm holding the mouse down and you can see it start to paint the mask in. So I'm just going all the way around the tiger like that. And now I can just keep going, right? Do I want it darker up here? And I'm using the paintbrush as opposed to the AI mask because I tried the AI mask and it didn't find the tiger nicely. So I'm using paint instead, but it also allows me to go darker in some areas than others, right? So see how I'm painting this ball in more than I painted over here, right? So now let's go back to properties. And if you want to see the before and after when you have a new layer, you have to just hide the layer. So go over here to the layer, right click and do hide layer. Okay, watch the background when I turn it back on. See that? Okay, now I've painted that in. Okay, so anything I do on this layer is only going to apply to the background. So if I want to blur it some more, I can go to structure and dial it down, right? Let's go to extremes. See how it's only applying to the background? And it's more applying here, okay? Because I've masked the layer already. So the layer itself is already masked, meaning it's only applying to the background. So anything I do here only applies to the background, right? Let me just hit OK. So let's take a look at the full before. A little overexposed, and he was losing detail in his fur. Now look, okay? Now I can still go back to the bottom layer and do some details. So let's sharpen him a little bit more and really punch up these medium details. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's happening. Okay, so this is 50%. Oops. That's 100%. Let's not do that. The mouth of the tiger. Okay, so you can see, wow, detail. Look at, you can see like his taste buds and his fur and everything. So let me take the medium details up. Look at that. Look at the fur. Super sharp, right? So adding some details here works really well, but I don't want it on the background, okay? So what I'm going to do is mask it again just to him. So I could do a radial gradient because the part of him that's out of focus, I don't necessarily want to sharpen either. So I'm going to do a radial gradient, which draws a circle or an oval, okay? And it's going to give me the opposite of what I want here, but we'll fix that in a minute. Because where I want it applying is going to be red, okay? So I just want to get it in place. So it's basically sort of on his head, about like so, okay? Now I can just invert it so it's on him. Right? And if I want to see where the mask is, just go down to the bottom here, mask actions, and show mask. Right? But if I zoom in again, and I do the before and after, you can see that it's only sharpening. See that? It's only sharpening him. Okay. So that's one of the ways that you can use duplicate layer. Okay. If you are using a texture overlay or something, you can actually apply it again. You can rotate it. You can use a different portion of it. Same thing with the bokeh overlay. So you can add a bokeh overlay, and we might do that on another image. So let's see how that goes. Let's see what we're doing here. Haven't used layers yet. You've got my Luminar Neo course, right, Trish? So you should be able to watch that because I did a whole section on layers as well. Luminar Neo update, I would say go for tomorrow, Rob. Go for tomorrow. Yes, we have Luminar Neo keyboard shortcuts as well. That's a good idea. Some blank spots. All right. Any other questions about that? So if that's the first time you've seen that, it's a pretty new feature. And I said that's one of the ways that you can use duplicate layer. And this is one of the reasons that people have been asking for this. Another thing that we've been asking for is stamp layer, right? A stamp layer takes a copy of all your layers that you have and combines them. I actually have a Luminar Neo shirt on today. They sent me this one. So see my photo combat. Choose your weapon. Choose your fighter. Luminar Neo. Oh, hey, Paul. Trish is in New Zealand as well. Larry says, okay, so how do you save everything now? Great question, Larry. So Luminar Neo is a database. If you've brought your image from Lightroom over to Luminar, you would take it back to Lightroom and then export it, okay? And, excuse me, I got a tickle. You would do your exporting from there. Lightroom and Luminar are the same. Just put that up here. So I'm answering this question. Luminar is a database program. So it automatically saves your edits inside the catalog. So your Luminar Neo catalog is like your recipe book for your photos. So I like to use that analogy of a cookbook. So it's kind of like cooking your images, right? Your edits are in the catalog, and they only apply to the original image. Because if I look at the original, I'm getting a cough drop. Excuse me. Make myself cry. Entertain yourself for 10 seconds. I'll be back. Okay. All right. Found a cough drop. There we go. So if I want to find this original image, just to show you, right, I'm going to right click and do show in Finder. So Holly sent me her original raw file. And there you can see is the original raw file unedited. Okay. So the way that Luminar works is it only saves the information about how you would like to process this image. Then to create the image, you have to export it. So I'll just do a quick export here. Let's see, I'm just going to put it on my desktop if I can find it. There we go. I'm just coming on my desktop for now. And I'm going to do, let's say, if you want a size for Facebook, always save a long edge, resize on the long side, 2048 pixels and quality 100 because Facebook crunches them anyways. So then I'm going to save it. I'm going to come to my desktop, or yeah, did I say desktop? And it should show up here in a moment. So it will export a new image as a JPEG, which is the size, which is what I told it to do, and save it here on my desktop. Still exporting. Okay, another question Holly had that I will do while I'm waiting for that. Okay, so it's not exported. I just saw it show up. Okay, so see, there is the new image. Okay. Does the radial gradient apply the strength the same amount, or is it lesser strength on the outer circle? Yes, exactly. So the wider part you have the circles, the more it fades. So the outer circle is 0, the inner circle is 100%, and it fades between them. So the closer they are together, let me do another example. Let me pick something where it's going to be really obvious. Here, I'll do this image. Oh, this is your image, Deb. I was going to do this one. Okay, so let me, I did some funky stuff with this one. I'm just going to hide this. Okay, so this is her original image. And if I want to apply, let's say something that's darkening, okay? I can't do it with develop, so this is the tricky part. What can I do that will make it obvious? Okay, I'll just do a black and white. Okay, so if I convert to black and white, oh, I've got the other layers. Maybe it's okay. So now we got black and white. Then if I add a radial gradient, okay, so see how it says click to drag and drag to draw gradient. Okay, so the closer these circles are together, see that? The more of a hard edge it is. Okay, so you'll just see the circle like that. The further apart the circles are, I gotta grab the outer one. The softer the edge or more the fade. Does that make sense, Holly? Okay, so close together, no fade, almost a straight line like that. Further apart, see, I gotta grab the outer one. That's the trick. Further apart, super graduated. Okay. So if I look at that, now it's just color in the middle. Okay. Does that answer that question, Holly, about Trish says, are the export sizes the same for Instagram? That I'm not sure. Anytime you want to know, actually, where's our, can you do our link to resizing for sharing online article, Rob? Because I do believe we put a link to a chart in there for all of the different sizes for the different platforms. So Rob will put a link to that one for you, Trish. So if you want to stretch the gradient so that the inner circle covers the part of the image you want all the details on. Yes, exactly. You got it. Right? And then fade it out so that you don't see it. Because the closer together the circles are, the more obvious that edit's going to be. Yep. Instagram does have other options, Rob. You can change it, but it still doesn't have full options. Like if you have a really panoramic image, it will still crop some of it. So it does have a horizontal and a vertical option, but it's not super tall or super wide. Yeah, share the link for that article. And if we need to update the article, let me know as well, and we can find a current link for that. Okay. Rob says I should have gone full screen with my t-shirt show off. Okay, do you guys want to see the t-shirt again? All right, so it says Photo Combat. Choose your fighters. 200 mil, 550 mil, or 24 mil. And then it says Luminar Neo on my backside. And how you get one of those, I don't know, Holly, because they gifted it to me because I'm an ambassador. So I get gifts. All right. So do you want to see what I did with your image, Deb? Because I had some fun with layers on this one as well. So I'm going to show you what I did, and then I'll redo it. I'll undo it and redo it. So what I did was I duplicated the layers, and I processed the bridge and the trees differently. Okay. And I previously hadn't edited this image because Deb did such a good job on this. I wasn't sure that I could improve on it. So this is her edit. And I really like this version as well. So she's gone darker on the trees and sort of yellowy and golden light, which works really well, right? So on this one, let me just undo. Actually, if I so shortcut for keyboard to reset everything is Command Control Shift R, and it resets the image. Okay, I've tried doing it in here and it doesn't work. It only works when you're in the catalog, I think. If can you do it from up here? Yeah, see, there's no reset here, but when you're in the catalog, there might be. Still adjustments. Yeah, revert to original. So it's there, but when I go here, yeah, not here. So you have to do it in the catalog, which is weird. All right, so what I did with this one was, this is the original as she shot it, okay? And all I did was duplicate the layer again, okay? So I did a duplicate. And then I did the same idea, multiply, okay? So it darkens. So any of these in this section here, darken, multiply, and color burn, all will add darkness or combine darkness, okay? Any in the middle here, lighten and screen, are going to add some lightness or combine lightness. Okay, so screen, see what that is? Makes them even more sort of faded out. And then anything in the overlay section adds contrast, okay? Especially hard light. So if I want to intensify this look of the dark bridge and the light trees, which is kind of what I was going for, so make it more like a tunnel into the trees. So hard light actually works really well, okay? So I can do that and apply that here. So let's just take it to the extreme, okay? And then let's duplicate the layer again, right? Now keeping in mind that it copies exactly, including the blend mode that I just did, right? But let's say this time I want to lighten. So I like screen. Now I only want it on the top part, okay? So I'm going to mask. So let's try Mask AI. I find that sometimes it picks up the right thing and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm not sure what it's going to look for here. It's probably going to find man-made ground. It might consider the bridge architecture. Yeah, and then there's some water underneath. So man-made ground, indeed. It's got the path. Architecture. Okay, so we're close. We're really close. The edge is kind of jaggedy, though, and it's missed a few bits, right? So I could just go, let's see, water. I'm not sure what it's thinking is water. No. Water's not bad. Okay, so we're going to go with that, and then I can just add to it. Okay, so if I show the mask, I can paint in these bits that got missed here. So I get the whole bridge. And generally when I'm painting, I definitely want to zoom in a little closer and do a better job. So don't paint zoomed out. You want to paint closer so you get it right. And I'm not trying to be perfect on the bridge here. I just want to get roughly, okay? And I know that it got some bits wrong over here as well. So now I'm going to hit X on my keyboard and it goes to erase. And I just want to kind of get these bits, clean these bits up a little bit. I'm going to do it at a lower strength and a bigger brush. So if you use a bigger brush and just sort of get the edge, it will soften that edge a little bit, okay? So I'm just running along the edge, and I do that a lot when I'm doing the portrait background removal and if I'm doing the portrait bokeh. Okay, so I'm just running along the edge. to try and clean it up and soften the edge a little bit. Like so. And we'll clean up this edge. So sometimes the AI is almost perfect, and sometimes it needs a little bit of work, but it's still pretty darn good, and it gets you really close. Okay? So I'm not doing a perfect job here, and if I was painting a lot like this, I definitely would use my graphics tablet, because painting with a mouse, you can get hand cramps, and also it's not as accurate. Okay? So now I've got that fairly well masked out. Let's see what it's doing. Right? So again, if I want this one, oh, have I got it backwards? I might have it backwards. See, I've got it backwards. So I'm applying it on the bridge, but I want it on the opposite. So I still need to flip the mask so that it's on the trees. There we go. Okay, so now we have like a real extreme, but let's dial that down a little bit because that's gone too far. And I would just soften the edge a little bit too. Okay, so let's do that. Brush again. I'm going to go softness 100 and take a bigger brush and see how that's sort of overlapping the edge of the bridge. And I'm just going to go like halfway. So it, oops, I think I need to paint. I need to see the mask. Let's try that again. Okay, I'm going to paint instead. Okay, so I'm going to paint. There we go. So it just comes over the edge of the bridge a little bit because it's looking a little bit too kind of cut and paste. And then I want to go around the edge down here as well so that the bridge fades out a little bit towards the end. Okay. That's a little better. Okay. And I might even do a little more fading down at this end. Okay. But now the cool thing is anything I do to this layer, okay, is just going to apply to the trees. So now I can do a mood and add a color. And I seem to remember that Auckland is quite yellow, so I might use that one. And if I can't remember, I've got my LUT contact sheets on my desktop. Can you please share a link to that video, Rob, for the LUT? So what I've done is I've created this little proof sheet because we don't see a visual preview of the LUTs. It's something that I'm hoping that they add in the next couple of versions. So I'm looking for something yellow. So I like Anaheim. Let's see what else. Auckland. See, I was right. Auckland was yellow. London looks pretty good. Maybe Rosa. Okay, so let's try Anaheim or Rosa. So it just kind of gives me an idea of which one I want to pick. I usually leave the amount up so I can see what it's doing. And the other one was Rosa. Yeah, see, they're not doing a whole huge lot here. Let's do some more saturation. Let's try one of these Ukrainian ones. I think the Auckland was the best one. Right? We can also go ahead and add some toning, which will give us highlight tone as well. So I can add some saturation in here in terms of yellow. Okay. So see that? So we're getting the same kind of golden glow coming from the fog. And now the cool thing is that because I've got the bridge down here, I can mask this one out as well. Okay, I wish, that's one thing they don't have yet, is duplicate masking or copy masking from one layer to another. I'm hoping that's coming. They do have it on the other tools. You can do it from tool to tool, but I'd love to be able to copy what I just did, right? So on this layer, if I want to do the opposite, I can just paint in really quickly into the bridge. So let's just say I want the bridge only here. So I'm getting the opposite area as the other one. Okay, so I'm letting it fade out towards the end here of the bridge. Now whatever I do on this layer only applies to the bridge. Okay, so oops, sorry about that. Now I can add more structure, give it more punch We could add some details. Okay, so anything I do here, see, it's only applying on the bridge. So now the bridge is super sharp. Okay. And then we could go to the layer that has the trees and either blur it or do my favorite, mystical. Because this one is kind of mystical, right? See how it's doing a nice, we could actually even warm it up this way as well. And there's multiple ways to do things here. So there's the original and what I came up with. So a little bit different than what Deb did. Okay. She went darker with hers. For some reason, it looks like I straightened mine. One of them looks crooked. I'm not sure whose. Right? And I went with the lighter one. Okay, so I went with the dark bridge tunnel into the light trees. How are we doing? Any questions here? I've missed a whole bunch. All right. Yes, I speak Mac Windows when I give shortcuts. That's why I'm always saying Command Control, right? I missed that. Auckland is yellow. Oh, Canada's white. Haha. We don't have a Canada lot, though. Maybe I should make a Canada lot. Can't hear you. All right. Freedom Lot says Ukraine. Yes. Luminar Neo and Photoshop. Where are you joining us from, Surya? When you have multiple layers, which layer is showing all of the edits? The first layer. No, they're all different, Holly. So you can have different edits on each layer. Okay, so let's go back to my edit. Okay, so this is the bottom layer or the original file. Okay, you can see that I have over here 0 edits. Okay, if I go to the second layer, this is the one where I did the bridge. And I use the hard light. Okay, so it's going on the bridge. See that? Okay. On this one, I did develop, structure, and details. And then on the top layer, which is the one where I did screen blend mode, which is the trees. Yeah, see, I had the lowered opacity. That's why the effects aren't doing as what we thought they were doing. I have the whole layer lowered opacity. So they're only doing a minor effect. Okay. On this one, I did develop, mood, toning, and mystical. Okay. So yeah, you can edit each layer completely separately. Holly had another question. I already answered that one, Rob. This one here. Yes, I already answered that one. I said she was bang on with that. Yep. All right, let's try another image. Are you kind of getting the hang of this? I'm at the hang of it. Now I've got one of Anne's images, but she's not here. This one's kind of cool as well. I had some fun with this one. Let's play with this image. This one was actually submitted quite a while ago, and I wasn't sure what to do with it because it's kind of drab, right? You know, the sky is kind of just there. So I thought, well, this might make a good candidate for sky replacement. So let's see what we can do with it. So I'm going to start, and it's a JPEG that this person gave me, so I'm not sure how far I'm going to be able to take it. Because the thing is, there is sky here, but even if we enhance it, again, it's a JPEG, so you get to see what's becoming what's called artifacts. So you see how the color is not going smoothly. This is what's called banding or artifacts. Okay. Also looks like we've got some bugs here or something. Okay. So I don't want to take this too far because it's not going to handle it because it's a JPEG. Okay. So I've got to go a little gentler with it. But the first thing I want to do is develop just to give it a little bit more punch. So we're going to give it some smart contrast. And then I'm going to look at the histogram. Okay. So you see that it's missing the whole right side of the graph. So I'm just going to tuck it in over here. I can make sure that the keyboard shortcut J is clicked so that I see any clippings. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's going to brighten the sky, but it's also bringing out highlights everywhere else. And we're going to change the sky anyways. So brightening the sky will make it easier to cut out from the tree. Okay. So then when I add some, I don't know if you can see that here, but if I zoom in, you can see there's a little bit of clipping in the tree. That's this blue highlight warning there, or the blue shadow warning. Okay, so I want a little bit of clipping. Okay. It also looks really yellow. So while I'm in here, I'm just going to dial out a bit of yellow and see if that tree looks any better. I could try a shot. I could try daylight, but that looks a little better. It's still yellow looking to me. Okay, see how that looks better already, right? Just clean it up a little bit, okay? So there is a little bit of blue in the sky to work with. And see, now because this is not a raw file, remember we had chromatic aberration and distortion before here under optics. Now there's just auto defringe. So I'm going to check it off, all right? So you only get chromatic aberration when you have a raw file, or that you have the ability to undo it, okay? The next thing I want to do is deal with this grass, because I want to minimize this color of the grass a little bit. So I'm going to go to the color tool and luminance and just darken the green a little. And I might do the yellow as well, because I want to sort of minimize the grass and bring the saturation down on both. Like so. I might even clone this part out or crop it out, this little bit of yellow in the corner, because I'm going to use the erase tool anyways. And I'm going to fully erase a couple of things. So when you erase, definitely zoom in. 100% is better. And I want to try, this looks like an anthill or something. So I'm going to try and remove the anthill. And I'm just going to paint over it. When you do the erase tool, make sure you get some stuff around the thing you want to erase, and do one major thing like this at a time. Okay. And by having the space around it highlighted or painted, it needs to know what to fill it in with. Okay. Look at that. Pretty good, right? Now, if I don't like the fact that it's duplicating, I could just do another pass here and see if it does a better job. It's kind of believable. I mean, it looks like, you know, another clump of grass, right? So now I want to get rid of this thing over on the side because it's just sticking in the edge. So I did a video, the one that I did on cropping talks about cropping things like that out as well, okay? Now there's all these little spots in the sky, and I probably wouldn't be too concerned about them, but because I'm doing a sky replacement, I'm just going to get rid of them. I think they're bugs or something else, maybe birds, but when I do a sky replacement, it may give the program trouble. So I'm just going to clean them out, okay? And it does an easy job. I did try removing dust spots and it didn't get them. So, all right, so now let's try and remove this. I'm going to paint over the tree and the stick. And let's just see if we can get the top part. Okay, look at that. Really good, right? Now I'm just going to paint over the whole shoot and match here. Okay, and let's see how it does. And I'm going to get a little bit of grass on either side because, again, it needs to know what to fill it with. Okay, so you have to give it some information around the thing. Whew, look at that. Done. Pretty good, right? Now I said I also thought about doing this corner so I could get rid of this yellow grass as well if I want to. Okay, so let's just see what happens if we paint the whole shoot and match out. So if you make a mistake with the erase tool, that did pretty good, right? So there's a little bit in here that looks sort of not in focus, but I'll just fix that. But if you make a mistake with the erase tool, right? For example, let's just say I do something weird and I don't like it. Well, it did a fine job. You can actually just repaint over the area and then click restore instead of erase, and it will put it back, okay? I am going to get rid of this little white spot too. All right, I'm getting nitpicky now. Okay, so we've cleaned it all up. I could deal with these little brushes on the edge here, but I'm okay with them, okay? So far, we've just cleaned it up, given it a better color and a little bit of contrast. So it's already infinitely more interesting and better. And I do like the sort of, the composition is nice. It works with the tree off to the side. So now let's do a sky replacement. I have done a few favorite tools. Okay, you'll notice that these ones at the top here, I could actually unfavorite enhance because it's usually down here anyways. So the ones that I use that are further down that I like to use a lot, you can just favorite any. Okay, so see how I just unfavorited that one? Another one that I use a lot is color harmony. So by right clicking any of the tools, you can just add them to favorites and they appear up at the top. Okay, so now it's up here. We can actually even try color harmony on this one, right? The color contrast tool is the one that I like a lot, right? And so I can just see what I can do with this. I can actually change the light on the tree. Look at that. So I can make the tree stand out more or make the sky stand out more, right? So by doing that, actually, we actually make the grass darker and the sky whiter, which might make it easier to replace. I'm going to do that, but not to such extreme. So let's just do it part way. Now let's do that sky replacement. All right, I admit I played around with this image a little bit before, and I played with a couple that I thought might work well. And one of them I played with was this one of the California clear skies. So these are in the set of free downloads that you can get on the Skyline Marketplace. And the one thing you want to notice, first of all, is you want to fix things like this. Okay, so see how it's getting these little white bits around the edge of the tree branches? I mean, it's not blending properly. Okay, the mask refinement sliders, these things will all work. Okay, you want to use closed gaps. So I'm just going to take it to extreme. Now see how all of a sudden the branches just got longer. Okay, so let me go back this way. See, it's trying to cut off the branches. That's why we're getting those weird endings. So when I fixed closed gaps or took it up higher, now look, the branches come back and it's blending absolutely perfectly around the tree. I find that either closed gaps or fixed details or combination of the two together usually does a good job. Let's take a look over here at the little bushes. Okay, so there's something weird going on here. Let me just see if I can fix that one. I might need to do more global. Global means that it covers more. So if there's something underneath, it covers it over. Actually, it's not doing too bad. No, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go with that. You also want to make sure that it's covering the horizon. Okay, so it should be orange at the bottom here. And this is going to be under the sky position. So, oops, let me zoom out. If I move it up, you can see where the edge of the new sky is. Okay, and it's sort of almost not far enough because there's that dip there. So I'm going to move it down just a little bit. Okay, so that's one idea. And I mean, this is a very, very minimalistic, very simple image. And you might even try something like black and white and just keep it really simple, clean, and graphic. Okay. The other one I played with was under stormy skies. Now, I'm not sure where I got this one. I might have gotten this one from Skylum, but there's several lightnings. And I thought, let's just see what happens if I play with one of these. And there was some that were kind of cool. I think it was this one. Yeah, I think it's this one. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm just going to flip it, and I can change the horizontal position. Oh, no, I did do it this way. And I'm just going to shift it over. So it looks like the tree is almost getting hit by lightning. Now you can see this thing blending not quite so well at the bottom. So we can also do scene relighting. So under scene relighting, that means that the new sky will give more colors onto the old picture. Okay, so if I increase relight, see how it's darkening the foreground, right? So it's making the foreground or the original image match the new one better. See, I'm still worried about this corner here. It's still not down far enough. Or there's a blend or something that's missing there. See that? So I'm playing with the global blend, fix details, and close gaps. Still not quite blending down here. But that's kind of the idea I was playing with. And then I thought I'll just throw a really heavy vignette on here and go fairly extreme to make it really stormy. We might do it more like this and then just put it on the tree. Okay, feather up. In this case, I might go really extreme and just leave it. Something like that. And you also have control of the sky. We could darken it a little bit more if we want. So there's a sky adjustment, which I didn't do. So we could darken the sky or warm it up or cool it down as well. So a couple of different ways you could go and make something very different. Random question. Oh, are you in Utah? Let's see. Did I not answer that? When you have multiple layers, which layer is showing all the details? The first layer. I did answer that. So how do you see the final layer with all of them combined? So if you have multiple layers, I'll go back to the one of Deb's. So if you have multiple layers like this one, as long as all the layers are turned on, you will see the finished edit, right? So it doesn't matter which layer you're currently have active. Right now I'm on the bottom layer. Now I'm on the middle. Now I'm on the top. See, that didn't change the picture. As long as they're all showing, you'll see the final edit. If I hide this layer and hide this layer, now I'm just seeing the bottom layer. Okay, so if you want to edit your image individually, just hide the layers so you can see what it's doing. But as long as all the layers are showing, it doesn't matter which order they're in, and it doesn't matter which one you're on. You see what you've got as a combination. Does that answer that? So yeah, you're not combining the layers. They will stay separate, okay? And then you see them combined. That's how it works. And it's similar in Photoshop. So I know you don't use Photoshop, but if you have one layer and another layer and another layer, you always see them combined unless you turn that layer off or hide it. Okay? Paul says, I really like what you did with the tiger. Thank you. So the idea with all the things that I do with these editing is to, in this case, created a style and sort of made a funnel. So I had a plan of, what I want to do with it. But the idea is to bring out the subject, right? And in that image, definitely the tiger is the subject. Right? The whole shoot and match. I did say that. Holly, got it. Okay, perfect. So let's see. What else can I do a survey on? What did I just work on? Where was I? Remind me which image that I just had. Oh, so there's a question, right? So what is too far? I mean, this is an infinitely long discussion, right? But what's too far, and when does it not become your photograph anymore, right? If you took the lightning picture and you took the tree picture, is it still then your picture? Is it still then photography? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Put your thoughts in the chat if you're watching live, and put your thoughts in the comment area below, right? How far is too far? How far do you take your edits, right? Some people will define a photograph as captured by the camera. But if you actually look at the history of the word and the meaning of the word based on the Greek words photography, photo is light and graphy is drawing. So photography is literally drawing with light. It doesn't say anything about a camera, right? So whether you're doing the drawing with light in a camera or partly in Photoshop, photographers have been manipulating images for 100 years, right? Think about Ansel Adams. Think about going back into the days of the Hollywood portraits. They were all retouched to the nth degree. So there's been lots of photo editing and manipulation long before digital, right? But I'd love to hear your thoughts. I personally think I liked the simpler sky. Now that I'm seeing them both, I was just kind of playing around to see what I could come up with, right? I kind of like that. I mean, something like that, it's not an image that's going to win an award or anything, but if you want it on your screensaver, on your desktop or something, I think it's great, or if you need an image that you want to put text over or make a greeting card, again, perfect example for something to use, right? But there is no right or wrong. And at the end of the day, and the bottom line, as to the question of how far is too far and how much is too much editing, if it's your image, you get to decide. That's it. All right, let's see what else we got. Let's see. I was going to do this one because it worked well. So I picked a few that work well with the duplicate layer thing today. So this is another one that looks like it's a little bit overexposed. You can see the sky is clipping. And I forget whose image this was. Mark's image. Okay, so this is Mark's image. I'm not sure if he's here. I don't think he is. Right. So first thing I'm going to do is develop. And I want to make sure that curves is open so that I can see what's happening. I'm going to bring the highlights down. And I think the overall exposure needs to come down as well. Aha. Yeah. See, when I do that, it brings all of the information in line in the histogram. Okay. So it's a combination of highlights and bringing down the exposure. And look at that. Even the sky comes in line when I do that. Okay. So we don't even have to do a sky replacement. We just need to adjust it correctly. This is another image that's difficult because it's shot midday, and I know this is in Peru. I'm sure on the Inca Trail or somewhere along there where it's the ruins. Lots of similar things in Machu Picchu. It's the same kind of building, so I know the area, right? All right, so now let's check the color, see if there's a better profile. Let's try landscape. Woo! See, in this case, I wouldn't use landscape because it's adding contrast, and I don't want more contrast. We got too much contrast already. So if anything, I'm going to choose something that is flatter. Let's try that. Actually, the Adobe one was actually not too bad, or the standard. Let's do the camera standard. Okay, so now we've done that. I want to make sure that the optics are checked off. Let's just see if we have any chromatic aberration. So chromatic aberration, I'd see like a little line or color line around the outside. You can also see defringe if you have, see how there was that little edge between the sky and the mountain? Now it's fixed when I check these off. So I always check those off just because. Now I'm going to crop it a little bit because I'm not sure it's straight, number one. So let's just click horizon alignment and see if it straightens anything. Okay, so what I'm trying to look at is these vertical lines here. So I'm not sure that that's better. Yeah, maybe it is. Okay, so the program seemed to know what was straight and I didn't. So I'm going to go with it. I'm also going to go freeform here because there's too much foreground. There's a lot of really bright, these little grasses or flowers in the foreground, and it's not really adding anything to the picture. It's taking away from us seeing the building as much because it's bright. Okay, so again, remember those 4 things that draw your attention. Areas of brightness, areas of intense color, especially warm colors. Okay, so these bright pink flowers here, areas of high contrast and sharpness. So your eye will go to the bush here, between the difference between the bright light in the tree or the bush and the shadow will grab your attention. Okay. And the whole thing looks pretty sharp. So we can't just focus in on the subject because the background's out of focus, because it's not. So I'm going to come in a little bit on this side. And I'm also going to come in to get rid of most of this tree over here. Okay. Because it's not helping. Again, those things on the edge of the picture, unless it's really adding to framing the subject, get rid of it. And then I'm going to come down a little bit because we don't need all that space up there. So let's see what that does. Okay, so see how it brought us into the building a little bit more? I'm still not convinced that that's straight. It still feels crooked to me. I think it was straighter before. Let's try that. Does that look straight to your guys' eyeballs? Okay, we keep playing with that. Okay, so now I'm going to do a vignette. And the thing, again, with the vignette is I can't mask this. Okay, so if I darken the edge, let's do my normal trick here. I want to get in on this little house, right? But I don't want to add extra darkness here. So I kind of almost want to darken like this and keep my thing a little bit. Yeah, see, it's tricky because I want to darken this bottom, but I don't want to add darkness to this already black area, okay? Because it's going to go super dark. So vignette is not really going to be super helpful in this instance. I'm going to keep it a little bit more softer or neutral. See how this dark area goes even darker? So I'll go a little ways, about like that, okay? I could have also lowered the contrast a little bit in here, and I'm going to go back to the develop raw, because you can go back to your edits and just take the smart contrast down a little bit, not too far, something like that. Okay. Now let's duplicate the layer again. So D on the keyboard, and I'm going to do multiply. Okay, so darkened everything. Okay, and let's try the AI masking. I'm hoping that it finds architecture, okay, because it is architecture. Let's see. Got some answers to the question. We'll have to come back to discuss that. I'm eager to see what you all said. Okay, so architecture. Yay! Okay, so that did a good job of picking up the architecture. Now the lines are not perfect, and I may want to pick up a little bit of these trees as well. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm just going to use the brush. Of course, I want to invert it because I want the opposite. Okay, then I'm going to use the brush to just add to it a little bit to, remember, soften that edge, okay? Because the edge looks really sort of cut out. So I'm just going to go around the edge and just like paint it in a little bit so that the edge, and get this grass here too, okay? So I can decide where I want to darken and where I don't, right? So I can just soften the edge. So, because it's really hard. Can you see that? You understand what I mean by a hard edge? It's really well defined, okay? And it's also picking up part of the brick here. So I want to get the brick back brightness like this and keep the edge. I want the edge graduated more, okay, if that makes sense, okay? So I don't want to see a hard line. Same up here, okay? So there's like this weird, missed the part of the tree, and so on. Okay. Let's do one more quick pass over this bush here, lighten it a little bit. And what I might do is take it off this dark area, okay? Because remember I said I don't want this dark area additionally darkened, okay? So let me turn the mask off so we can see the picture. Yeah, so now obviously this is really strong. So again, I leave the edits really strong so I can see obviously what it's doing. But look at how the building stands out, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to dial it down until I get something that I want. Now, if I decide that I actually want it at 100% here or higher here, I can just leave it at the stronger amount, go back to masking, take a really big brush and just paint it like 30%, erase rather, okay? Really big brush, and just do a big erase up here, right? Get this part up there. Okay, so now I'm darkening more than up there. So the bottom part is darkening more. If we look at the mask, you can kind of see by the opacity of the mask, right? So it's darkening more here, a little bit here, right? And I can leave the mask on and get rid of these highlights as well, okay? So I can play with that a little bit more, But see what this one is doing. If I dial the opacity down, see how that's really punching it up. So the multiply blend mode is a really old trick from Photoshop to darken images. Okay, especially back in, if you don't have a raw file, for example, you can take a JPEG, and it's going to update. Thank you, Adobe. You could take a JPEG and do this with a JPEG. So if you think you can't pull enough detail out of your picture, be surprised. Try the duplicate layer in the multiply blend mode. Okay. Now I could also do something on this layer, like if I want to lower the saturation or the structure, right? Mostly it's going to apply to this foreground and a bit in the background. See how it's sort of blurring the flowers? I don't know if you could see that. Okay. I could also turn the saturation down, because whatever, see how that works? So the saturation of the foreground is being affected the most, because that's where the mask on the layer is. Okay. All right, let's see what everybody said. I'm curious because we've got some good discussions going on here. If you took it all, the add-ins, it's still your image. Okay, that's Ruth. Trish says, for me, it depends on my purpose. If I have a photo that captures a great memory, I'm not going to make a significant change, like a new sky, because it's not what I saw and what I remember. That's a fair point. Mark said, I don't think it's too far. Editing is fun, although not always realistic. And that's exactly the thing, right? And that's where people say, oh, it doesn't look realistic. That's where I talk about neon puke and things like that. So generally, especially like landscape photographers, portrait photographers, you want to kind of look natural or realistic. But what if you're doing sci-fi or a punk band or infrared, or like infrared? I have one of my cameras converted to infrared, and it's actually really cool to play with, and I used to use black and white film. Our eyes can't see infrared, so it's not at all realistic for our eyes, but is it cool? Yes. Holly says, I prefer to use my own skies or textures, but sometimes I have to use someone else's, like Darlene's. I know you like the bokeh pack. If you're just having fun, I think it's okay to use other artists' work. Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to sell something, it depends, right? Like my bokeh pack, if you make another image and you're using a bokeh overlay you've purchased from me, we give you the license to use that on your own creations. So feel free to sell your image with a bokeh overlay. While I'm talking about that, you might as well share a link to the bokeh overlays or the ultimate editing bundle, Rob. Nice to see you, Trish. I'm glad you stopped in today. We will be doing Lightroom next week. Exactly. Holly says, I assume if you enter a photo in a contest, you'd want it to be all your images, and those are probably the rules anyways, but otherwise just have fun. It really depends on the contest, because some will say that yes, some don't allow composites at all. Some allow minimal editing. So yeah, it really depends. So you have to read the rules carefully. David says, I think in some cases you want to be true to the original shot and make that image the best it can be. Apps now allow for pure creativity in creating an image. Each are valid forms of creativity. Yeah, awesome answers. These are great answers. Stephanie's late to the party, but that's okay. You can still join the party. Let's see. Faithful to Skylum, only because I can't absorb Lightroom and Photoshop, keep my editing life simple. And that's okay too. Like I use Lightroom as my base and Photoshop as like a plug-in for Lightroom, so to speak. And then I use Neo as a plug-in as well. So that's my workflow. But if you just use Luminar, that's fine. You may also use Topaz or On1 or Nick filters by DxO. There's so many other things that are available on the market. And honestly, use whatever works for you. If you're happy with your images and you like the results, keep doing it. And if you don't know how to use it, come here every week. So let me grab my reminder slides again. So if you haven't already taken my Luminar Neo course, I've got a cat walking across my desk. There's a tail. If you haven't already taken my Luminar Neo course, that's the link to check it out. I know a few of the students in the course are here. So if you want to ask them what they thought of it, go ahead and do that. And we're also in the middle of doing our Lightroom course, which may not be of interest to you guys, but we're in the middle of doing our Lightroom course. We have several more weeks as well. So Mark says he just did the course and loved it. Yes, I just did a custom video for Mark the other day, right? And that reminds you that you need to do some tutoring with me. Yes, which is also available. So Rob, if you could please, if you're back to your office, I know he was away from his office for a second there. If you could please share a link to both the Luminar course for everybody and to the Lightroom course that we're currently doing. And next week, we will be back doing Lightroom. So I wanted to just kind of get back to on the My Leo thing and why I've delayed it several times. I've honestly had a few issues with it and getting it installed and getting it running. So I'm still on the fence about it, to be honest. So I want to give it a fair shot, but I'm also going to give it a fair review. So at the end of the day, if I'm not happy with it, I'm not going to promote it. If it's not something that I would use and tell my friends to use or my students to use, then I won't recommend it to anybody. So I want to give it a good go and make sure that I'm doing it right and make sure that I understand the concepts and everything before I present it to you guys. So I will present something either way. Either thumbs up or thumbs down. So stay tuned on that one. If anybody is using My Leo, I'd love to hear from you. You know, put a note in the comment area or the chat if you're watching live. And if you use My Leo, tell me, do you like it? What have you done with it? Do you enjoy it? Have you had any troubles? So there's a link for that's the Luminar course, Rob. Oh, you put Luminar twice. You put the Luminar course twice. You said Lightroom, but you put Luminar. And let's just see. Can we remove that one? No. I can put you in a timeout, Rob. Larry, if you're new to this channel, we always laugh about it that I'm the front end and Rob is the back end. So I don't know what that makes him, but he does a great job on the tech stuff in the behind the scenes, we'll say. So there's the correct link for Lightroom. And if you're watching the replay of this live, all of this stuff will be in the description area below the video. So again, submit your photos for next week. Let me just put that on. I'd love for you to send me some of your photos. I would love to have raw files. And you saw the kinds of images that I worked on today, right? They need to be an image that needs a little bit of a TLC. Maybe you're not sure what to do with it. Maybe there's a problem you don't know how to fix. So send that in. We're doing Lightroom next week, and we'll be back to Luminar 2 weeks from today. So we alternate one after the other. But even if you're using Luminar, you can still watch the Lightroom because the ideas behind what I'm doing applies to any software. I'm showing you the how-to in the software, but I'm also showing you why to edit and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, and that's really important as well. So submit your images and let me know what you think about photography in general. Let's have a discussion. Take care, and we'll see you next week.